Welcome everyone to Saptarishis Astrology channel, and today is a very special day. Okay, before that, I know it's a new look for most of you, and I've been to south of India to Tirupati, and there in the temple you have to shave off the head that way. Anyway, why is this such a special day for me today? We waited for months for this interview to happen. More than months. The person we're going to interview today is somebody who's responsible for me to be sitting over here. Somebody who's responsible for the 8 years of Saptarishis Astrology magazine. Somebody who's responsible to put me back on the astrology track. And I'll tell you how. Many a times, before I go to the how, let me also tell you why I love him and why I dislike him. Many a times, when I think, why am I in this astrology field with so much of troubles and confusions in the astrological knowledge, and how difficult it is, how troublesome it is, I kind of think of this man and say, man, he put me on this journey. And how did this journey start? Way back in 2002, for a few months, I had gone to Australia. When I came back, I wanted to start a film production unit in Australia. With my friends over there, I coordinated, and I had a business partner here in India. And somehow, the rules and regulations were taking time. The money was not coming in for my partner for the investment. I'd set up an office, waiting. Then I thought, hey, I was earlier in astrology in 1993. And then I left it. Let me see if some astrologer can guide me. So I did Google search or whatever, at that time it was Yahoo, I guess, and found out the name of this man. I found several others, but he seemed the most authentic without any monetary consideration. And he was running such a very huge Yahoo groups at that time. At that time, there was no Facebook, where people were researching, discussing. So I wrote a letter to him saying that, hey, I am in the television industry. Right now, I'm trying to start a business in Australia to make movies. Can you please look at my horoscope and guide me if it will happen? He replied back after a few days, saying that you join my Yahoo groups of astrology. I would reply over there so that other astrologers can learn from my reply. I joined the Yahoo groups, but somehow I could never see his reply. I was not so tech savvy, nor am I now. And then, because I joined the Yahoo groups, I restarted my astrological journey. And after that, it's been almost no stopping back in that journey. So let me introduce you guys to one man who not only changed me, whose contribution to astrology is unparalleled. Unparalleled. Nobody has done what he has done. Every day, every hour, 90% of Vedic astrologers in the world have to thank him every hour, which we do not. We open something every hour or every minute. It's open in our computers. It's all because of him. But we do not have gratitude to thank him. I've seen hundreds of astrologers criticize him. But the word thank you does not exist. I've always said our gratitude and thank you are two words that does not exist in astrologer's dictionary. Without taking much time, let me introduce you to that man whom I love and whom I dislike when I'm upset with astrology, because he got me back into astrology. The one and only, the man who changed astrology, Mr. Shri PVR Narashimha Rao. Please welcome him. Narashimha Rao ji, Phyllis, please come on board. Thank you, Phyllis. Narashimha Rao ji, it's such an honor. It's such an honor to have you here. Yes, I hope we can. Yes, we can see you and hear you. How are you, Narashimha Rao ji? Namaste, pradam, sir.
Namaskar, Namaskar Sunil, and Namaskar to all the audience.
Thank you so much. It's been months we've been coordinating to get you on board. Thank you for giving your precious time. How do you feel after what you have achieved in astrology? How do you feel today sitting back?
Well, to be honest, I'm not sitting back, and it's not like you're making it look like I'm basically now retiring from astrology or something. But the way I look at it, my astrological journey is in the middle of it. Basically, my astrological journey can be divided into multiple phases.
Okay.
When I was a child, I think I started learning astrology when I was about 8 years of age. So my father, his name is PBS Charapati Rao, Pingale Venkata Subramanya Charapati Rao, and he was a well-known astrologer in my native town, which is Machilipatnam in the state of AP, Andhra Pradesh in India. And he was a well-known astrologer locally, and he made many successful predictions to local people as well as in some magazines. For example, one famous prediction that he made was in one elections in the state of Andhra Pradesh, he predicted the exact number of seats that NTR's party would get based on his horoscope. And a prasna, he predicted the exact number.
Wow.
And he was known for making many successful predictions. He learned from his maternal uncle. And actually, he learned from his maternal grandfather and maternal uncle. And those were well-known astrologers in their hometowns and villages. So I learned from him at a young age, at an age of 8 years. And the way it would happen is every year, I will start learning in the summer. And then I will forget by the time winter comes. And then in the winter break, I again try to learn. And in the summer break, I spent a month or two trying to learn astrology, brush up my basics, and talk to my father, read the books that were at home. And then I will leave it once school starts. So that went on for many years. And when I was about 23 years of age, after I finished my bachelor's at IIT Madras and my master's at Rice University, I went back to India. And before I started working as an engineer, I took a break for about, I think, 4 months, 5 months or so. So during that break, I was home in my native town. I spent time with my father. That's when I really seriously got into astrology. I started spending more time on astrology. And at that time, the time I spent on astrology was a lot. When I was 23, 24, 25, I was spending a lot of time. And then when I was about 24 years of age, there was a prediction that I made to myself. I basically identified based on Gochara, just Rasi, Navamsa, Vimshotri, and Gochara transits. I identified a 5-day period. I said that, oh, during this period, my Dasha Lord Mercury, he's in the 8th house in Vargotam, and also 9th Lord Venus is in 9th house, Vargotam, Gochara. So this period is going to give a big break in life. There's going to be a big breakthrough in life, something really auspicious. And then I was happily working at a startup in India in Hyderabad. I was settled down in India. I didn't really want to go anywhere. I was happy. And then suddenly I got an opportunity to leave India. Somebody approached me. I never even had my biodata resume written at that time. Somebody just approached me with a nice opportunity. So that really told me, man, there is something in this subject. I really became more interested in astrology. So after I left India and I was away from my father, my real search started. And as I dug further into astrology, I realized that the stuff that I was doing, like Rasi chart, maximum Navamsa chart, and then the Vimshotri Dasha and transits, they didn't have enough degrees of freedom to scientifically explain how things could be happening to a person. Let me explain what I mean. If you take twins or triplets that are born 3 minutes or 2 minutes apart, they will have the same Rasi chart. And I found some charts where they even had the same Navamsa chart. So two people with the same Rasi and Navamsa chart having totally different lives. I had examples of twins where one was very learned, very educated with multiple master's degrees, and the other was artistic, didn't even have any education. Both had the same Rashi and Navamsha. So things like this made me more curious. And then I discovered more books. Started reading more classics. I started reading Parashara. I started reading Dr. Raman's books. I started reading Mr. K. N. Rao's books. And as I read these books, I realized, oh man, there is more depth to this subject. It's not just Rashi and Navamsha. Even though I'm saying Rashi and Navamsha, at that time I was only using Rashi really. I was looking at the Rashi chart, houses from Lagna and maybe from Moon sometimes, and then the Dasha, Antardasha, and then Gochar, transits of various planets. And I was making predictions. And luckily, there was a lot of good predictions also. And that is why I really got interested. But the thing is, once I started looking at it scientifically, I realized that there aren't enough degrees of freedom. So when I discovered all these classics, all this literature, this took me to ancient books, Varahamihira's books, Parashara's books, Kalyan Varma, all these books. And once I read those books, I realized that there is a lot more to this subject. Whatever I've been doing is only the tip of the iceberg. So once I started digging into things, Pandit Sanjay Rath came into my life.
Wow.
He,
When was it? Which year?
This was, I think, 98.
98.
I think I met him 96, 97 time period. I don't remember exactly.
That
but
was in the Jyotish.
98.
You were abroad,
Yeah.
and through the Jyotish list.
I was in then. I was living in the Boston area.
Okay.
So ever since I came back to US, I was in the Boston area.
So through Ben Collins Jyotish list, you met Sanjay Rath ji.
Originally Ben Collins Jyotish list. Yes, absolutely. That's where I met him. And later we started Vedic Astrology Yahoo group.
Right.
And then so many people started flocking there.
That group is like history, It's like rather than history, It's like I don't know the name. It's like time immemorial. Everybody who's been into Jyotish has come via that group, either through Jyotish or your PVR Vedic astrology groups.
Yeah, that Vedic astrology group, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s, there was a lot of great discussions there.
Huge, brilliant. I mean, today when I look at that group, I was in that group way back in 2002, 2003, and I look at the technical discussions in that group. Phyllis, you were also present at that time, right?
Yeah.
Look at the discussion.
Phyllis was there. We actually met personally also. There were a few conferences that Sanjay ji organized.
Yes.
I think I remember you in Ukiah, California.
There was a conference. Yes, yeah. I remember the first time.
Yeah. So
it was an interesting meeting.
Yeah, those were the good old days. So Sanjay ji, 98, 99 is when I really became serious. And then we started spending a lot of time with Sanjay ji, not only on the Yahoo groups, but on the phone. He would teach me some secrets like the Tithi Pravesh, for example, the lunar New Year chart of individuals, basically lunar birth chart based on the lunar birthday. So those, he would teach me some special techniques and I would experiment with those. And at that time, I had a software that I was using for myself. And it was basically developed based on open source astrological calculations that I took. And then I built all the Vedic astrology calculations on top of it, on top of planetary calculations. So I had that software written for myself, and Sanjay ji wanted me to add various dashas like Charadasha, Narayan Dasha, Sudasha, Drug Dasha, all these ways, Thira Dasha, all these various dashas and various options for divisional charts. There are various ways in which you can cast various divisional charts, and then various options in the Varshapal chart, and then add these lunar Varshapal charts, the so-called Tithi Pravesh charts. So I had all these various options and then different kinds of progressions. So as I learned more and more techniques and different ways of computing the Arudhapadas and Upagrahas, so many things basically started coming. And then the greatest thing that Sanjay ji did was, apart from giving a few secrets of his parampara, he's from the Orissa state of India, from an area near Puri. So he's from a traditional family which practices astrology for many generations, tracing back to Sri Achyutananda, who was one of the Panchasakhas of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So apart from the secrets from his parampara that he taught me, he really got me interested in the teachings of Parashara. because he was really focused on Parasara and more importantly on Jaimini. So I started digging into the Sanskrit classics. And one thing in my background was when I was a young person, before I went to engineering, when I was, I think, around 8 years of age, I was introduced, along with astrology, I was also introduced to Sanskrit. So there were a series of examinations that were conducted by Bharati Vidya Bhavan in Mumbai. So I passed those examinations. Basically, I will study at home, and every 6 months there'll be examinations. You have to go to a college nearby and take those examinations, and you will get the results. So if you pass, you can go to the next examination. So this is like a correspondence course. You're just learning by yourself and you're just taking the exam. So I learned Sanskrit. My father taught a little, but my mother was really the one who was instrumental in my learning. So I learned by myself and took these exams and I passed. I think I was around 11 or 12 years of age when I passed Bhasha Kovida, which means, I mean, forget about the meaning, but it's equivalent to bachelor's degree in Sanskrit literature.
Wow.
So
At
after
11,
that, yeah, I think 11 or 12. And then there was, I think 11. And then there was another called Bhasha Visharada, which was conducted by a different board in Baroda. So I didn't have to take the entire series, but because I passed the last exam in one series conducted by Bharati Vidya Bhavan. So I took the final exam of the other series and I passed with distinction. I was a Bhasha Visharada. So it's like I have 2 BA degrees, 2 bachelor's degrees in Sanskrit. So the thing is, I was very comfortable with Sanskrit. I could compose poetry in Sanskrit. I could understand literature. So that really gave me a fillip when it came to understanding Sanskrit literature. So I went back to Parasara and Jaimini. And to be honest, Jaimini was a tough nut. So whatever Sanjay ji teaches, that's all good, but I could never be sure that that is really the real meaning of what Jaimini taught, because there are so many other interpretations given by various scholars of the last few millennia. So when I said, okay, let me interpret things by myself, it did not make sense that I should start with Jaimini, because Jaimini was too hi-fi. So, and then I discovered, hey man, whatever Jaimini has taught, Parasara has taught 90% of the same things. For example, people think that Charadasya, Sthiradasya, Trikonadasya, Yogadasya, these are all Jaimini Dasyas. They think that Arudha are Jaimini concepts. They think that Charakarkas are Jaimini concepts. When I dug into Parasara, Parasara Hora Shastram, that's the absolute classic. That's the Bible of Jyotish as far as I'm concerned.
Correct.
When I read that, when I went back to that, because of the influence of Sanjay ji, when I started reading it independently, I discovered that whatever Jaimini is talking about, very cryptically, he will say, you jump from here to there, you get it. What do you get? Where do you jump from? Where do you jump to? No idea. And then people speculate what it is meant. But the thing is, he just talks in this kind of coded language. So I realized that the same wording, same terminology was also in Parasara. And he's actually talking in more descriptive and less cryptic language. So I realized if I really want to make sense of Jaimini's teachings, why don't I actually fall back on Parasara? Because at the end of it, he's a Rishi. He's the father of Vedavyasa. So, and also he's the authority for Kali Yuga. He said that I'm going to teach the essence of Jyotish for the intellectual pygmies of Kali Yuga. So he was just like Vyasa was coding all the spiritual knowledge for the next generations. Parasara was trying to create a compendium of all astrological knowledge. And also Dharmasastra knowledge, really. Parasara was also well known for Dharmasastras. And his Dharmasastra is supposed to be the authority for Kali Yuga, even though some people fall back on Manu and other Dharmasastras and get confused. Parasara is supposed to be the authority for both Jyotish and Dharmasastra for our era. So anyway, so I'm going back. So I realized that if I can make sense of Parasara, I'm all set as far as astrology is concerned. And the problem was, on the surface, because I'm a Sanskrit scholar, on the surface, I could understand the literal meaning. But after I meditate on it for a while, I keep contemplating it. Suddenly, I realized that whatever I've been understanding is only the superficial meaning. There is something more, something deeper there. So this is the way rishis teach. They don't teach they don't spoon feed you. They teach you in such a way that there are layers of meaning. Just to give one simple example,
Sure.
if you take Adhoda Padas, Sanjay Ji used to teach in his parampara that Lagna is the Sachapitam and Arudha Lagna is the Maya Pitam. Sachapitam means is the seat of truth and Maya Pitam means is the seat of illusion. And you can speculate what exactly it means, and he has some teachings based on it. But the thing is, once I was thinking about what Parasara said about that, suddenly it clicked to me. The exact words that Parasara uses in Sanskrit are bhava and pada. Prathama bhava, Dvitiya bhava, Tritiya bhava, these are all first house, second house, third house. The corresponding Arudha padas are actually called Arudha pada or simply pada. Arudha means manifested, pada means word. The literal meaning of the word pada is word. Whereas bhava literally means.
Sorry, can you repeat? Pada
Yeah.
means?
So what I'm saying is, when you use the English word house, it means nothing really. You think that it's a house in which you live, etc. But if you use the corresponding Sanskrit word, the word is bhava. Bhava and pada. The houses are bhavas and the arudhas are called padas. So bhava literally means meaning. The bhava of what I'm saying is what it means is the meaning of what I'm saying. So the literal meaning of the word bhava is meaning, and the literal meaning of the word pada is word. So for example, when I'm saying something, when I am saying this, these are all padas, these are all words, and then they have a meaning behind them. The word when has a particular meaning. It refers to, I'm referring about some time, I'm saying when this time occurred, like that, right? So similarly, when I say planet, planet is just a word, but the thing is, the meaning I have in my mind is there is something moving in the skies and that is basically having influence on us. So there is a particular meaning. So the way we all communicate is through the words, because the meaning that I want to communicate is hidden, buried inside my own mind. And what I do is, I can't convey it to you telepathically. So what I do is I use words. And then once I use the words, you recreate the meaning in your own minds. And the magic is, we are all genetically, there is something that we are made of, such that eventually we all learn to use words pretty much the same way. It is never identical, but pretty much the same way. So now I'm using all these words and there is certain meaning in my mind. And it is reasonably being recreated in your minds and the minds of your audiences who will listen to this later. And how that is happening? Because I'm using these words to express. So the thing is, there is a clear meaning between word and meaning. And Kalidasa refers to the same thing in the first verse when he says Vagartha viva sampraktau Vagartha pratipattaye Jagatah Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwaro. He says Vag Artha. Vak means words, the speech, things that you say, and Artha means meaning. So he says that Shiva and Parvati, Shiva stands for the essence of the universe, and Parvati stands for the manifestation, this whole universe, the moving universe, the essence behind it, and the moving thing. So he compares them to the words and the meaning. And here again, and that ties back to what Sanjay Ji was taught in his parampara, Satyapitam and Maya Pitam. So the thing is, the things that you hear, the things that you can tangibly see, the words that you hear from me, this is the Maya Pitam. This is in the field of illusion or the field of duality. And the meaning that is in my mind is the real essence, and that is intangible. So the conclusion that I came to, the direction is, the Arudha Padas are the manifested symbols. They are like words. Whereas the houses are like the meaning. So in other words, let's now go back to astrology. To be specific, Parasara teaches that the fourth house and the pada of the fourth house, both of them show how happy you are with your vehicle itself, etc. He doesn't distinguish which is the fourth house and which is the fourth pada. He just says use the fourth house, fourth lord, fourth pada, all these things to see the vehicle, happiness from the vehicle, etc. Now the thing is, if you now apply this understanding that bhava and pada, bhava means meaning and pada means word, and words are tangible. The world can feel them, see them, perceive them, whereas meanings are intangible. World tries to judge them. It is internal, it is intangible. So with that essence, if you now go back, it must be that there's no other way. Now it is clear. Once I thought of it, it is absolutely clear that houses must be the intangible aspects of whatever Parasara has mentioned. And padas must be the tangible aspect. So for example, the specific vehicle that I drive, whether it's a Toyota car or a BMW car or a bicycle or a scooter, that must be shown by the pada of the fourth house, because that is a word, that is a symbol that the world can see. Whereas how happy I am with my vehicle, how comfortable I am with my vehicle, that must be the fourth house itself, because that is in my mind. You cannot basically, that is intangible. So similarly, you can now apply this to anything. For example, my communication skills. You can only see the words that I am communicating, the lectures that I have given, the videos that are there on the internet of my teachings. So those are tangible. So those must be from the pada of the third house of communication. Whereas my communication, my ability to communicate, my passion in communication, the style that I bring to my communication, that must be from the actual third house. So what I am feeling inside, what is really happening inside, that is the actual house. Whereas the things that the world can see, those are from the padas. So this is just one example. So what I'm saying is, when you see the word pada and bhava, it may not be obvious to you which one to use where. The rishis combine everything. So he says, use this to see this. He doesn't distinguish when to use what. And then there are some clues from the parampara, like one is Satchapitham, the other is Maya Pitham. But the thing is, once you understand the meaning of the word, see here just the play of the words pada and bhava, because you understand Sanskrit and you understand what is the real meaning of those words, you get a new layer of meaning. So like this, everything that the rishis have taught, whether it's the computation of dasas or computation of various gocharas, anything that the rishis teach, there are layers of meanings. And if you understand Sanskrit well, if it is natural to you, then even then it won't be clear to you. You will only see the superficial meaning originally. As you keep digging in, you will see the real meaning intended by the rishis. And I suspect that there's no end. As you keep digging, there will be newer and newer layers of meanings that will manifest to you. So the bottom line is, knowledge of Sanskrit is one thing that will help you in your Jyotish, especially in my case. That was one thing that helped me in the Jyotish journey. And the second thing was some clues that came from the parampara through Sanjay ji. Those gave the other set of clues. So when I combined these, I started making sense of things and making some progress. And then while this was happening, there was a new phase was triggered by my spiritual guru, my spiritual mentor. His name is Dr. Manish Pandit. He's a nuclear physicist in UK, and he contacted me around 2004 time frame. He contacted me himself, and he told me some things, and I don't want to go into the details of it, but he got my spiritual sadhana. I was doing some spiritual sadhana previously for a couple of decades, but he really gave me a push and things happened there, and I was making some spiritual progress. And during that time, my interest in Jyotish was waning. I was becoming less and less interested in Jyotish as I was experiencing more and more things internally and realized the impermanence of all these things, including Jyotish predictions and understanding the world around us, because the world inside is a lot more interesting and a lot more difficult to understand than the world around us. So as I was becoming more interested in it, he told me, you have to, no, you can't leave Jyotish, you have more to do. So become serious about Jyotish. And at the same time, he strongly told me, when a person called Vinay Jha, Sri Vinay Jha, he approached me and he wanted to teach me a new way of computing planets. Instead of the Drik Siddhanta, which uses planets as you see in the sky right now, Surya Siddhanta is an analytical model that basically is a formula to see where Sun, Moon, Mars, etc. are present in the skies. It is very similar to what you get physically, but the values are slightly off, sometimes by up to half a sign or even more. Sometimes even up to a sign. So the Surya Siddhanta was traditionally used by a lot of astrologers in India. So my spiritual mentor told me, you just take whatever this Vinay Jha gives you and you go with it. It will really make a big difference to your your astrological pursuits. He said this is a big turning point in your astrological pursuit. So I blindly believe, because of my faith in him and also because of some things that really, some amazing things that happened in the previous few years. I had blind faith in him. I blindly believed in the calculations of Surya Siddhanta and I switched to it completely. And once I switched to it, I basically started to rebuild my base. How to use divisional charts, how to use dasas, transits, etc. So this was, I think, around 2010 or so. So for a year and a half or so, I completely believed in this and I tried to make sense of it. But eventually, a year or so, I realized that this is not really working well. If I take various corner cases, tricky examples, this is not really panning out well. So I finally confronted my spiritual guru. I told him, hey, Manish, it's not working. Surya Siddhanta, it doesn't really seem to make sense. And then he said, okay, then leave it. Then I said, then why did you ask me to even, you said this will make a big difference to your astrological pursuit. Why did you ask me? He said, well, it will make a big difference to your astrological pursuit. That's what I felt. Maybe I'm wrong, but I still think it will make a big difference. But in any case, if it's not working, leave it. Go back to Drik Siddhanta. Then I basically went back to Drik Siddhanta. And there was two positives from this. From when I went back to Drik Siddhanta, now I just left everything. I started, it's like a complete reboot. I said, okay, now if I leave Surya Siddhanta, I was using a totally different Ainamsha. Surya Siddhanta Ainamsha is way different from the standard Lahiri Ainamsha. It is basically more close to Raman Ainamsha and Yukteshwar Ainamsha than the Lahiri Ainamsha. So then I went back and said, where did actually Lahiri Ainamsha come from? And when I did some research on that, I realized that it was more a political construct than something based on pure astrological considerations. In other words, astrologers of India for the previous 2000 years or more, they were using an Ainamsha close to Surya Siddhanta Ainamsha. But for example, Yukteshwarji's Ainamsha, Raman Ainamsha, all these were close to Surya Siddhanta Ainamsha. And many Ainamshas used in India, various parts of India were close variations of Surya Siddhanta Ainamsha. And then when this commission was called by Nehru to standardize simply the festivals, they wanted to know when a particular festival is coming, when Ugadi comes or when Sri Ram Navami comes. For that, you have to be consistent in how lunar months are defined. So for that, you have to be consistent in how zodiacal signs are defined, because those are based on zodiacal signs. So this wasn't really, Lahiri wasn't an astrologer or anything. He was just an astronomer who was asked to standardize the definition of the zodiacal signs. So he basically said, okay, there must be some bright star at the beginning of Aries so that you can fix the start of Aries. And then he didn't find anything close to the beginning of Aries. And then he said, okay, there must be something maybe opposite it. So he found this star called Spica that is very close to the beginning of Libra. So he said, okay, this must be the exact beginning of Libra. So he fixed Spica star at the beginning of Libra, and that was it basically. That's how this Ainamsha was decided. And many prominent astrologers of the day were actually resistant. They said, no, this doesn't make sense for this reason. And still all that, because Lahiri was politically very powerful, he was connected to Nehru, he was a close friend of Jawaharlal Nehru, the Prime Minister of India, it was adopted. And then later on, some astrologers like Shri K. N. Rao popularized it. And then there was some politics between K. N. Rao and Dr. Raman, and this Ainamsha became more popular. But one thing has to be mentioned here. The astrologers who were using this Ainamsha, they weren't really using any technique that depends on the accuracy of the Ainamsha. In other words, the divisional charts, they weren't really using them. Sri K. N. Rao and his students, they popularized divisional charts, but their take is, oh, Rashi chart is the main thing. Divisional charts are just secondary. So you have to see something in the Rashi, and then you use it to confirm. You use divisional charts to confirm it. Divisional charts cannot rule out the Rashi chart. If that's the case, what do you mean by, how do you combine? In other words, let me give an analogy. If you say you listen to Narsimha's wife, and then you ask Narsimha also. If Narsimha agrees with his wife, you follow that. If Narsimha doesn't agree, you overrule Narsimha and follow his wife. Bottom line is, Narsimha doesn't matter. You just listen to his wife. So this is kind of like that. You're basically saying that you use divisional charts when they agree with Rashi chart. Then what the hell are divisional charts for? So my take was, when you are combining two factors, Rashi and divisional chart, they must have a unique role. there must be some specific aspects that have to be seen from divisional charts, where divisional charts are the main ruling factor. And if that's not the case, then forget it. You're not really using divisional charts. So bottom line is, what I realized is, people who were using divisional charts and trying to popularize divisional charts in the last couple of decades, including Sanjay ji and Shri K.N. Rao, they were just giving lip service to it. And then I thought, maybe that's because the divisional charts are not accurate. Maybe if you can make them more accurate, you can rely on them more. Maybe you have to fall back on the Rasi chart because your divisional charts are not accurate. They're just like noise rather than signal. So I basically questioned the basic Ainamsa. So I took a fresh look at the Ainamsa. So once I based on various clues given in classics, once I finalized the Ainamsa, there was one more thing that I realized. The divisional charts were still not making great sense. And what I realized is the definitions of the divisional charts themselves were actually corrupted in the last century. When people popularized the divisional charts, they just blindly believed in whatever Santanam, G.C. Sharma, etc. translated Parasara as. They did not really independently look at those. I will give a simple example. There is a divisional chart called T24 Siddhamsa, which is arrived at by dividing each Rasi into 24 equal parts. The definition, the standard definition is, you divide each sign into 24 parts and you place them starting from Leo to Cancer. Leo, Virgo, like that, go to Cancer, and twice. Leo, Virgo, Cancer. Leo, Virgo, Libra, Cancer again. So that's basically the 24 parts of odd signs. For even signs, Parasara said start from Cancer. So what people did is, they start from Cancer, go Cancer, Leo, Virgo, go around the zodiac, come to Gemini, and that finishes one cycle. Again, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, and back in Gemini. And what I realized is, Parasara specifically said the counting is reverse in even signs. And people ignored that guideline. They used it only for the rulers of the Siddhamsa, Devatas, not for the signs. Yes, Sunil?
You said Parasara said
so
reverse.
The real definition I realized is, you don't go from Cancer zodiacally and go to Gemini. You go reverse. Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, etc. And then come back to Leo. Again, Cancer, Gemini, Taurus, come back to Leo. So even signs, you basically go from Cancer to Leo. Art signs, you go from Leo to Cancer. Once you do that, it's basically just very logical.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello?
So once I applied this definition and looked at events in learning that happened in people that I know, things started to make a lot more sense. Then I said, hey, if D24 is wrong, what about other charts? Maybe other charts have some error too. So I basically went back to the basics. I rebooted. So I started with a new Ainamsa. I started with new definitions of divisional charts. I looked at various possibilities and experimented with them. So I started refining all my absolute basics. And there was one more thing. When we use Thiripravesh and Tajaka Varshapal charts, we have this notion of a year. For example, Varshapal is a chart that is cast every year when your birthday comes. And this is the solar birthday. When sun comes back to his natal position, wherever he was when you were born, you make a chart for the time every year and you predict how the year will be based on that. And the way people do it in India is, they use the sidereal solar year, which means sun will come back to his natal sidereal position. So he's come back to the same position with respect to stars, but not with respect to seasons. In other words, let's take Sri Rama. He was born many, many years back, many thousands of years back. When he was born, it was in the spring. And people basically apply the same definition after many years. If they take the same longitude of sun in the sidereal zodiac, it will come in summer, winter, autumn. It will just keep shifting. So the way people are defining now the Varshapal chart, that basically shifts a little bit, because people don't live such a long time. You don't really detect it. But the thing is, there is an absurd thing here. So what I said is, okay, does it make sense? Should it be tropical year instead? So that is another big discovery I made, which is, for charts, for the purpose of making charts, use the sidereal zodiac. But for the purpose of reckoning time, months, seasons, and years, you use the tropical sun. So when sun comes back to the same tropical position, which is basically with respect to seasons, not with respect to star. So sun may be at a particular tropical longitude in my chart. When he comes back to the same tropical longitude, he's not exactly with respect to the same star. He may be slightly shifted with respect to the fixed stars, but it will be in terms of seasons. It is the same number of days from spring equinox, or the same number of days from the summer solstice, etc. So when you do that, it shifts by a few hours every day. So if you make the Varshapal chart, even the Rasi chart, the Lagna will be off by a few signs every year. So once I switch to this method, both for the Tithi Pravesh and the Varshapal chart, it is more pronounced. The impact is more pronounced in the Varshapal chart. When I did this, things actually made a lot more sense. And I realized that I made a lot of good predictions previously also. But the thing is, the good predictions can be made because of the calculations that you're making, or simply your intuition. And the calculations you're making may just be a proxy. And what I realized is, a lot of good astrologers of India and even West, they basically they do some sadhana, they have some spiritual power or some vagbala. So because of it, when they're destined to help somebody in a positive way, they make good predictions, and the astrological calculations are just a proxy. Is there a way to have calculations which are replicable, which are basically, there is a clear pattern that you can see? So that, from that point of view, I started to build my base. So I basically rebooted and started building my base. So I had a new Ainamsha, I had new definitions of divisional charts. So most of the divisional charts I have finalized on what the definitions are. There are just a couple that I'm still pondering on. And I redefined the definition of year, redefined the Varshapal chart, redefined the Tithi Pravesha chart. And slowly, as I started redefining things, I realized what my guru, spiritual guru, told me. He said, well, if you switch to this Surya Siddhanta, he said it will be very beneficial to your astrological studies. And the thing is, if I hadn't done it, I was in my own comfort zone. Because I left everything, I went to something really nonsensical and came back to the Siddhanta. I could afford to, because I tore down everything. I was rebuilding everything from scratch, and this afforded me the opportunity to do some groundbreaking research. This was one good thing that came out of this fiasco called Surya Siddhanta. But the other benefit is, people became very skeptical. Oh, this guy changes his mind. He had this Jagannath Hainamsa, which is a slight variation of Lahiri Hainamsa. Then he went to Surya Siddhanta. He was there. He was with it for a year and a half. And then now he's saying something else, Pushyapaksha Hainamsa, which is the new Hainamsa that I use. So they said, oh, this guy, he doesn't know what he's doing. And that's basically a blessing in disguise, because I always worried, as your knowledge becomes subtler and subtler, as you understand the secrets of the rishis more and more, the onus is on you to make sure that the knowledge doesn't fall into wrong hands. And rishis very clearly taught, not only rishis, even modern teachers like Varahamihira, they clearly said this knowledge should be taught only to Vardhi Sishyas. And unfortunately, given the modern life and especially my lifestyle, I don't have the opportunity to pick right people and impart it to them. So my approach is, put it out freely in the public domain and let whoever wants it pick it up. So with that approach, I'm making myself vulnerable to abuse of knowledge. I'm basically committing the sin of passing on knowledge to the unworthy. So from that point of view, I consider this as a safeguard that the nature has created for me, or my gurus have created for me. This basically the skepticism that a lot of people have for me, the loss of faith that I went through, that was really very useful to me. So still there are some people who hang on to me, who still follow me, But some people
Okay.
have stopped following me, which is really a blessing in disguise for me. So this was the other benefit that happened.
Can I ask a question? Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Narashimha?
Do you want to take a break, Sunil?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Let's take a break.
Let's take a
I
break.
think you guys are on mute. I can't hear anybody.
Oh, okay. Let's take a break. We'll come back.
I can't hear you, Sunil. I can only see you.
Okay.
Trying
Okay,
to
we'll
say
take a
something.
break. We'll come back.